Hi, I'm Barry Thain. I'm a clinical hypnotist and I've done, over 10,000 sessions over the last 22 years or so. I treat people, I don't really train. I don't teach people how they should do hypnotherapy, but from time to time I produce something which explains what I do, and I'm very happy if other people want to take something from that and apply it, and if it helps them in their practice, so much the better. My CHIPS DVDs, that's my Clinical Hypnotism in Practice seminar, are about what I do, how I do it and why, but the why is really all about practical considerations. I've never before attempted to publish a theoretical framework to explain the way I work. When I started formal training a long time ago, I was presented with, a dozen different models of hypnosis, most of which contradicted each other, none of which seemed to satisfactorily explain my experience when actually hypnotizing people. And by that time I'd been hypnotizing people for 5 years or so. Over the last 20 years I've developed a few models of hypnosis of my own without ever being happy with any of them, largely because they either failed to explain something that I'd experienced when doing hypnosis, or they were fundamentally undermined by an experience I'd had in real life with a real patient. So I've decided to publish this model of hypnosis because I've been working with it for the last 4 years, and so far it has explained every experience I've ever had. All the questions I have about hypnosis, I can answer within this framework. And no experience I've had tells me, that means that this model must be wrong. I don't say that the model is right, necessarily, but I've been kicking it about for 4 years now, and I haven't been able to destruct it, although I have tried, so I think it's robust enough for me to share it. So this is Mindsci Hypnology. Now, many of you, I'm sure, will balk at a neologism, yet another new word to get your head around. And I'm not fond of them either, where they simply replicate words which already exist and are perfectly serviceable and do the job well enough already. But I'm not sure there is such a word in this case. Mindsci Hypnology is a model of hypnosis, but it's not only a model of hypnosis. It's a model of therapy, but it isn't only a model of therapy. And it's a model of hypnotherapy, but guess what? It's not only a model of hypnotherapy. That's why I call it hypnology. You could use the word in other contexts. For example, sports hypnology. It kind of wraps the whole thing up. They have sports psychology, I think we can have sports hypnology, birth hypnology, and so on. Anyway, this is Mindsci Hypnology, and I want to start by looking at hypnotizability.
I don't think everyone can be hypnotized. People can be relaxed, and people can be influenced, but that doesn't mean that they're hypnotized. If I ask you to get up and close the door, and you get up and close the door, that doesn't mean you're hypnotized. I've hypnotized a lot of hypnotherapists who told me they had never been hypnotized, including Sharon in my Hypnotism for Hypnotherapists DVD, and I've seen some patients who I couldn't hypnotize. Every person I've ever encountered who claimed that everyone can be hypnotized failed to hypnotize me. And then they gave me a hard time for not going along with them. So here's what I think is going on with hypnotizability. I think there are two components to it, the first of which I call fixed. The fixed component is, I think, an issue of neurological architecture. Some brains are built to be brilliant at hypnosis, and some brains do not do hypnosis at all. all brains lie somewhere on the spectrum between brilliant and useless. It might be theoretically possible to work on one's neurological architecture over a long period of time to make a brain better at hypnosis, but for all practical purposes it is what it is. Fixed. This fixed component determines one's inherent hypnotizability. The second component is variable. Variables are factors which can get in the way of and diminish one's inherent hypnotizability. These are issues like control, anxiety, discomfort, or distraction. I call them variable issues because these are things which can be worked on and improved or even resolved within the consulting room and over 1 or 2 sessions. The variable components mitigate inherent hypnotizability to produce effective hypnotizability. Some people's effective hypnotizability places them within the field of hypnotizability, whilst others fall outside it. I identify 4 way stations on the scale of inherent hypnotizability: great, good, poor, and non-hypnotee. In my experience, an inherently great hypnotee can have a lot of variables going on, but they're still going to get hypnotized. I saw a woman once who said, "I'm really scared about this." "Why?" I asked. "You watch me treat your son. There's nothing scary here." "But you're going to hypnotize me. You could do anything," she said. "Don't worry," said I. "I'm just going to hypnotize you, and for an hour or so I'll have complete control of your mind and your body, and you won't be able to do anything about it." "Oh no," she screamed. "You're making it worse." After that, it was as much as I could do to keep her out of hypnosis. Inherently good hypnotees, however, can seem unhypnotizable if they've got a lot of variables going on. They can even talk themselves into being unhypnotizable by worrying about things like control. I've had people tell me proudly that they're control freaks, so they won't get hypnotized. And that can be enough to make them effectively unhypnotizable and put them outside the field of hypnotizability. But that's a variable, and it can be dealt with. "Let me see if I've understood you," I say. "From time to time, you wake up in the morning, and by the time you go to sleep, you don't think or feel or behave the way you want to, and then your sleep is crap. You're already out of control. My job is to give you back that control. As you deal with that and other variables, you make them effectively hypnotizable and bring them into the field of hypnotizability." Poor hypnotees are not inherently very hypnotizable at all, and the slightest variables, like street noise or the hypnotist's choice of clothes, things that wouldn't bother a better hypnotee, they can make them effectively unhypnotizable. You can work on these things and bring them into the field of hypnotizability, but they're never going to get the sort of miracle outcomes you can get with great hypnotees. And then there are non-hypnotees. These are people who can relax, who can close their eyes and visualize themselves standing on a terrace looking out over a beautiful garden, but who, nonetheless, will never be hypnotized so long as they have a hole in their exhaust pipe. Their brains just don't do hypnosis. Some people can't hold a tune, and some can't see colours, and some can't do hypnosis. Their brains just have no hypnotic capability at all. They can be incense-burning, whale music playing, goatee beard wearing, fully paid up members of the New Age, and be completely open to hypnosis and all who sail in her, but sadly they will never get hypnotized because their brains just don't do it. If they do have some variables going on, and you resolve them, they're still not going to do hypnosis. These non-hypnotees can be misleading too. They can want it so much, be so up for it, that they act and pretend like they were hypnotized, even though they weren't. Of course, there are not just 4 types of hypnotee. There's a spectrum of inherent hypnotizability, and everyone sits somewhere in the range. How effective they are as hypnotees may be influenced by any variables they have going on, and our ability to recognize and deal with them. How then does this insight affect the way I treat a patient? Just as an example, let us take someone who presents with arachnophobia. Don't worry, arachnophobes, I'm not about to put a spider on the screen. If I'm treating a great hypnotee, I can use direct suggestion. Having taken the case history, the rest of the session will be sleep, spiders are cute, wake up. I call this clinical hypnotism. Now, obviously the induction and eduction might be a bit more involved, though not much, but the intervention will be as simple as spiders are cute. In clinical hypnotism, 99% of the outcome derives from the quality of the hypnosis, while only 1% derives from the therapy done within the hypnosis. These percentages are, of course, indicative rather than definitive, but you get the point. It's all about the hypnotism. If my arachnophobe is a good hypnotee, clinical hypnotism won't work. Instead, I'll do hypnotherapy. By that I mean I'll hypnotize them, establish direct communication with their subconscious mind, find out what's going on, maybe using a regression to the initial sensitizing event, negotiate an outcome, discuss the means by which we will arrive at the outcome, do as much as possible, and wake them up. This takes more time, more sessions, and costs the patients more money than clinical hypnotism. In hypnotherapy, 50% of the outcome is down to the hypnotism, and 50% is down to the therapy done within the hypnotism. I could also do hypnotherapy with the great hypnotee, and it would work, but it would take longer and cost more, and wouldn't be the best way to treat the great hypnotee. I'll be wasting my time if I try clinical hypnotism or hypnotherapy with a poor hypnotee. Instead, I'm going to use relaxotherapy. That is a progressive relaxation, guided visualization, and is what masquerades in many places as hypnotherapy. Close your eyes, relax your toes, relax your knees, relax your elbows, think beautiful thoughts. And it does work. Sometimes. Relaxotherapy relies on the psychotherapeutic content for 99% of the outcome, and 1%, if that, on any hypnosis. You can also do relaxotherapy with a good hypnotee and get even better results than with your poor hypnotee. And you can do relaxotherapy with a great hypnotee and get much better results than with a poor hypnotee. But relaxotherapy is not the best way to go for good or great hypnotees. And for a non-hypnotee, I might do a Skinnerian systematic desensitization, complete with Sudscale. There are many psychotherapies available that require no hypnotic content whatsoever. And they're also available to poor, good, and great hypnotees. But it simply isn't the best way to treat them. There is nothing about inherent hypnotizability which might contraindicate CBT, for example. But it would be silly to waste months doing CBT with a great hypnotee when all they need to know is that spiders are cute. In psychotherapy, there is no dependence on any hypnotic content at all. 100% of the outcome derives from the psychotherapy itself. I want now to look at how all this relates to the three main delivery systems for hypnotic therapy. Firstly, symptom-centric therapy. Symptom-centric therapy is predicated on the symptom. Spend any time in online hypnoforums and you will see hypnovices fresh out of hypno school asking, "I've got someone coming to see me for OCD. What should I do?" Hammond's Big Red Book is full of scripts to be used in the treatment of this or that symptom. The vast majority of hypno MP3s are symptom-centric. People go online looking for a track to stop them smoking or make them happier, so we record MP3s to stop them smoking or make them happier. It's all symptom-centric. You cannot do clinical hypnotism or hypnotherapy in an MP3. You have to do relaxotherapy. The hypnovis cannot be advised how to do clinical hypnotism or hypnotherapy with his OCD patient because we know nothing about the patient and can't anticipate what may happen during the session and how that might be dealt with. So symptom-centric therapy is more or less confined to relaxotherapy, and that's fine if you happen to be working with a poor hypnotee. But it's less than ideal if you're working with a good or a great hypnotee, and it's a waste of time for a non-hypnotee. Then there's device-centric therapy. Like symptom-centric therapy, device-centric therapy pays no attention to who the patient is. Neither does it pay any attention to what the symptoms are. Device-centric therapy is all about the tool. Some hypnotherapists are going to do a regression, come what may. Some are going to do relaxotherapy, come what may. Some will do an effect bridge, even though the patient has angina and pumping up their emotions isn't the greatest idea ever, because they're wedded to their device. I use device-centric therapy, but I use it in group sessions, where I have no case histories, and where I'm not treating anyone for their specific issues. I think most device-centric therapy is a form of hypnotherapy, and that's not such a bad thing if you happen to be treating a good hypnotee. It's okay, but not ideal if you have a great hypnotee. But it's more or less a waste of time and money with a poor or non-hypnotee. Lastly, there's patient-centric therapy. This is what I do in the consulting room. My mantra is, treat the patient, not the problem. I think my ability to take a case history is just as important as my ability to hypnotize, as is my ability to improvise therapy for each patient on the basis of what I get from them during the session, and that includes finding out how effective an hypnotee they are. With a great hypnotee, I do clinical hypnotism. With a good hypnotee, I'll do hypnotherapy, even though I'm capable of doing clinical hypnotism, but I'll do hypnotherapy because I know clinical hypnotism isn't right for a good hypnotee. With a poor hypnotee, I do relaxotherapy, and with a non-hypnotee, I do psychotherapy. In each case, it's the most appropriate approach for the patient, in a way that neither symptom-centric or device-centric therapy ever can be. I will use symptom-centric therapy for MP3s, and I will use device-centric therapy in group therapy sessions. But in my consulting room, I do patient-centric therapy. None of which means anybody else has to agree with me or do what I do. But if you've made it this far and have any questions you'd like me to answer, please do drop me a line.